This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 57, about Daredevil, season 2, episode 4, Penny and Dime. Welcome back, Defenders, to episode 57 of our podcast, Defenders TV Podcast, about Daredevil, season 2, episode 4, Penny and Dime. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
And I'm Chris, back from San Francisco.
Welcome back, Chris.
Thank you.
And we also have a virtual host this week, not content to having us host the podcast while he's away. Jon has recorded a little welcome, and he will let you know where he is.
I am the third and final host, Jon, and I'm coming remotely from Belgrade in Serbia, where I recorded my 5 quick thoughts about this episode of Daredevil, Season 2, Episode 4, Penny and Dime, and also whether I defended or not this episode of Daredevil.
So yes, Jon has recorded part of his podcast for us from his hotel room in Serbia, where he is with work. Thanks very much for that, Jon. This is going to be an interesting editing session for me, I'll be honest. Jon has given us his top 5. We will be dropping that in at the end of the episode after myself and Chris have discussed our top 5, but we haven't heard them yet, which is quite fun.
It's going to be interesting. It'll be like, insert Jon here.
You've read my notes.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I'm doing it. Jon has also recorded a bit of feedback as well, which I'll also drop in at the end of the episode. But we won't be able to, unfortunately, discuss what he said. But hopefully they're really enjoyable points that he's provided.
Oh my God, if you guys could see Derek's skeptical look right now, it's going to be interesting.
They're always enjoyable points.
Yeah, but no, we can comment again next week in the next episode.
Exactly. So welcome back, Chris. It's been a while since you've been on the podcast.
It is. Unfortunately, I've been traveling with my day job, and unbeknownst to me, the activity of what Jon has been doing, which is really showing me up. You know, when I'm in a foreign country, apparently I can't record, but when he's in a foreign country, he definitely can. So the next trip I'm on now, I'm not going to let it stop me.
Well, we did get you in for episode 1. We did get your feedback in.
Yes.
The end
No,
of
that was
1,
good.
So thanks very much for recording that for us. We couldn't have gone by the first episode of the new Daredevil season without having your thoughts, at least on the first episode.
Thank God.
So what have you been up to? You've been watching the first 3 episodes of Daredevil, obviously.
Yes.
What have your thoughts been so far?
Because I'm usually the negative Nelly. The first 3 episodes, it kind of felt for me, okay, it was treading water is probably a bad analogy, but it was Daredevil season 1. It was great, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it hadn't, at that point, between episodes 1 and 3, hadn't raised the bar to make me go, oh my God, like this is Daredevil 2.0.
Right.
Like it was, it hadn't kind of gone anything over the previous year. Now, I stand corrected as of this moment because episode 4 completely represents one of the best 59 minutes or 49 minutes. I can't remember the running time.
Yeah. Longest episode so far. So yeah, about 59 minutes, I think.
Yeah. The best 59 minutes of the series, and personally ranks in one of the best stories, one of the best well written, directed, cinematography, stunt, what would it be? No, I was going to say choreography.
Yeah, stunt choreography or stunt, yeah.
Stunt choreography in the cinematic universe. Now, we've still got to see Luke Cage, Iron Fist, we've still got to see the Defenders matchup, we've still got to see Civil War, but as of right now, going against Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and all the previous films, this for me was one of it's up there in the top 3 it's engrossing, it's emotional, it's violent, it's thought-provoking, it's just mwah. I was like, you guys can hear me now, I'm just like fingers to the lips like I'm an old French man. Mwah, mwah, mwah.
We may have to start video podcasting soon.
I think so, because I look like right now I have my hood up, I look like a Jedi, and I'm doing French over the top French actions. So this would be an interesting video.
Absolutely. But before we get into episode 4, what did you think? So the big moment, I suppose, for us when we were watching the episodes, was at the end of episode 3, where we had this 2 or 3 minute fight sequence going down the stairs from the 4th or 5th floor all the way down the stairs to a basement floor fight. How do you think that compared to the season 2 corridor scene, the big fight scene they all talk about?
I loved that scene. As soon as it started and the camera panned and it didn't cut, I was like, oh, so this is going to be this series hallway. Because it was an extended hallway. Now, I loved it. It was good. It was beautifully kind of pow for pow, kabam for kabam type of action. It was like everything thud you could hear through the surround sound. I was expecting a bit more, something else to bring it up the next level. Now we may get that in the following episode.
Okay.
I don't know, because we only got 1 hallway scene, so maybe this season they'll give us 2 hallway scenes type thing. But I still know, it was still great. And I don't know whether that was Charlie Cox doing it. If it was, I'm now hugely impressed, because some of that, like the choreography and the actual fight scenes in the first 3 episodes have been really, really good. Like Daredevil, it's as I imagined in my head how Daredevil would fight. And you see in the comics with the kind of spinning cartwheels, but it's kind of the bicycle kicks.
Yes.
Where he lands back on his feet, he kicks someone in, and then flips.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I would imagine, because he has this unique, amazing control over all his senses and his equilibrium. And
I will definitely say, just to answer your question, I will definitely say those scenes are not Charlie Cox.
Oh, okay.
He does not do
that was going to be
backflips
amazing.
That's the wonderful Chris Brewster, who has been Charlie's double for all of Daredevil season 1 and for season 2. He does say that Charlie Cox does as much of the fights as he can, but Chris is better trained at the end of the day. He's been working as a stunt actor for years. In fact, I think we mentioned it in the first season. He did the stunt double work for Captain America as well, for the Winter Soldier, that wonderful scene in the lift. Do you remember that most amazing scene? One of the wonderful fight scenes. So he's been pretty much every Marvel character that you could think of that does a good fight sequence. That's pretty much Chris Brewster does that. Philip Silvera does all the choreography, but they do say that Charlie's heavily involved in how the scenes work out. We talked about it already on our episode 3 podcast, so don't want to go back into the fight sequence, but there is one shot in that fight sequence which to me stood out so much bigger than the hallway scene in last season, which was where Daredevil throws the chain around a guy's neck at 2 floors above.
Pulls him down onto
the stairs. That looks like back-breaking. A back-breaking act that looks like that stunt guy will never work again.
And they actually, speaking of, just at the towards the very end of that, where he's just fighting more with the chain, and he whips it almost like a full-on whip, like something you'd see out of Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
He whips it around the guy and then whips it off. I was like, okay, okay. I'm revising my, as I walk through it in my head, I'm going, okay, yeah, no, this was better.
So listeners, this is why we are Defenders TV podcast. I defend it and see if Chris will take up the same argument as I.
But okay, overall, the first 3 episodes didn't do anything too ostentatious. That kind of made me go like
wow.
Hold, kind of like bless my pearls, kind of like Southern Dame type, kind of be like, oh, this is amazing. Episode 4 changed that. Episode 4, taking in combination of 1 to 4, then yes, this is Daredevil 2.0.
Right. And it certainly is. We do have a big change for Daredevil in this episode. I think that's a great way to segue into our episode. Before we do, listeners, if this is your first time joining us, make sure you subscribe to the podcast by going to defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes. If you're an Apple user, subscribe to us on there. Leave us a review. There've been 1 or 2 coming in since we started the podcast, but I know we're recording a lot of these very close together. So, just make sure you get your review in. It'll allow other people to find us. One one big piece of news this week is that we have actually broken the top 100 TV and film podcasts in the US this week with our reviews of Daredevil. So I want to say a huge thank you to all of the listeners. We won't stay there for very long. That's only for a day, but I'm delighted to see it. It's a great little stat that I keep an eye on, and I love seeing it. So thank you so much to our listeners, and thanks so much to you guys for paying attention and for downloading us through iTunes.
More for thank you for listening to our rambles.
Well, there you go.
Our rambles do ramble sometimes, and oh my God, you come on the journey with us. Thank you.
Yes, delighted you've been here. If you are not an Apple user, you can download the podcast through any podcast catcher just by searching Defenders TV Podcast. The ones we generally use are things like Podcast Addict, Beyond Pod, and also on Stitcher. If you want to leave us a review on iTunes, you can still do that even if you don't download the podcast. Just download iTunes and write up your review on your computer. Anyway, enough of that. If you want to send us in any feedback about the episodes, you can send feedback to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com or come and join our group over on Facebook. You can find that at facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV Podcast. You got all that? Think we're ready to crack into the episode, Chris?
I think so.
Cool. So, Daredevil, Season 2, Episode 4, Penny and Dime, was written by John C. Kelley, who's written episodes of The Blacklist and House, and some episodes of NCIS. It was directed by British director Peter Hoar, who directed episodes right back to Grange Hill in 2005, into Da Vinci's Demons, and one cool one for me, he directed the Doctor Who episode A Good Man Goes to War. Very cool episode with the 11th Doctor and Rory and Amy, and learning who Amy Pond is and who River Song is. But spoilers, I will leave it there. So, synopsis for this episode.
This is going to be unique, people. Usually John does this. Are you ready? Derek, over to you.
In the aftermath of the Irish massacre, the gang members have a wake for the fallen comrades when former mobster Finn arrives to break the ice. Despite the murder of his son, Finn only has one thing on his mind, recovering the $1.2 million Frank Castle handily stole from the group. On the other side of Hell's Kitchen, Foggy, Matt and Karen mourn the loss of their client Grotto with some inspirational words from Father Lantam. Karen believes the only way to clear her guilt is to locate and help the Punisher. That leads her down a precarious route filled with mysterious black suits. As Finn captures and tortures Frank Castle to retrieve his money, Daredevil tracks down the vigilante and helps him in his escape from the Irish gang. Injured in the battle, Frank believes he is finished and shares the reasons for his murderous rampage with the red-suited Defender. One batch, two batch, penny and dime, they must pay for their crime. There you go. That's my first synopsis, I think, since we kicked off the Defenders TV podcast.
I'm very proud. You haven't lost a beat.
Yeah, John will be back next week with the synopsis for the next podcast, I promise. So, Chris, overall, you clearly loved episode 4, as I believe I did, and I believe John is also on a similar side. The way we cover our podcasts, if you're a first-time listener, we do get new listeners each episode, which is great. The way we cover our podcast is we watch the episode as many times as we want to, choose our top 5 points, each of us, talk through those top 5 points and maybe some notes. And hopefully by doing that, we'll cover all of the episode and then we decide whether we defend it. After we do that, we then are allowed to go and watch the next episode. So we haven't seen ahead on any of our episodes of Daredevil, just so you know that.
And it kills us.
Sorry. Chris, as a reward, and since it's your first time back, do you want to give us your first point about Daredevil Season 2, Episode 4?
Yes, I will. I'm going to take a very obvious point on this one, and I think all of our listeners will agree once they've watched the episode and are listening in. Jon Bernthal was incredible in this episode.
Absolutely.
His long speech at the end in the cemetery with Matt, while he was waiting to get picked up by the cops, it ruined me for other TV shows. It was gut-wrenching and beautiful, like literally same time. I kept staring at his face as like the prosthetics of this, where his lips were puffing up. I don't know if anyone noticed that. His lips were actually puffing up as they spoke, as they were swelling. You could see, I don't know how they did it, but it was just amazing. And God, I hope that Jon, that we come into some of the new award seasons, that Jon comes up for something for this best supporting actor or something. I know Daredevil is now kind of more easily recognized as a superhero show. I still think this was probably one of the best soliloquies, if you could call it that, because it was to someone. maybe a monologue, of just, it was heart-wrenching as he told the story around Penny and Dime. And I choked up. I'm not going to lie. I did a Kevin Smith on this. I was nearly Kevin Smith at The Flash. I was nearly like blubbering. This is so beautiful. I wish I had a child that could go to war and then come back from war to see the child. Punisher has never been a fully rounded character in the comic books.
Okay.
He was... he's Frank Castle, war veteran, depending on what comics you read, depending which war he was a veteran in. Mm-hmm. His family's killed by the mob, and he goes on vengeance. He's a vigilante whose his style of justice is death. Not that there's no huge depth to the character. Mm-hmm. Now, again, I know him through his crossovers with Daredevil and Spidey and like some of that. I've never fully read all of the Warzone. I believe I read some of around the times of the Avengers Civil War and post Civil War. I read some of his stuff then.
Yeah.
That which was really good, but again didn't drive huge amounts of kind of you don't feel a huge amount of empathy for this guy.
Okay.
Just this one scene did more for me than probably 50 issues of a comic book could in what was space of about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 12 minutes?
Yeah, about 10 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. It just, it literally takes you on this raw, and I feel like I'm trying to do an English essay in school. It takes you on a ride, takes you on a journey, cause it tells you his story. It tells you, but not from a point where my family was killed and I swore vengeance. It was like, this is why I do it. This is like my little one, Jon humanizes his character in such a way. This could be your next door neighbor who, if any of you live next door to a war vet, like this guy has seen horrors and he never heard them. And then he has a child, and you see a lot on social media of the dogs and the children who see their fathers come home from war or from serving an active military service. They're always great tearjerkers, but they're very much clickbait. It's just like, oh, that's cute.
But I love that he references, doesn't he, in the actual discussion? He says that the teacher is trying to video it and put it up on YouTube or something.
Yeah.
Yet she's breaking down in tears so much that there's no way this thing could be recorded as a video, you know? Brilliant scene. Absolutely amazing scene. Really, really enjoyed it. I would recommend, Chris, I know you haven't read many Punisher graphic novels. I would highly recommend checking out the Max series, for the Punisher, some of Garth Ennis' stuff and some of the stuff that's been in the Max series. He is humanized a lot more. What I particularly love about this scene, and it is one of my points as well, what I particularly love about this scene is that it's all told with Frank's voice. There's no flashbacks to it happening, which is such an easy thing for a director to fall back on, to actually, you know, when it's one of the kind of things you're told as a director when you're making films, when you're making TV shows, it's show don't tell. The audience want to see what's happening. But if you have an actor as good as Jon Bernthal telling the story of why he's doing this and what everything meant to him and why he's driven so much more than some other people may be, use that character and use him to tell this story. There's some heartbreaking lines in here, where he's saying that he's holding his child. She ran straight over to him. He's holding his child in his arms. He's crying so much that he can't stand, yet she's not crying at all. She's the one holding him up. She's the strong one. Beautiful, beautiful moments. And then, you know, to be a father, to be asked to read a bedtime story for your child, the simplest thing you could ever do. And for the last thing you ever say to your child to be, I'll read it to you tomorrow, not tonight. It is heartbreaking, and it is a fantastically delivered scene. Really, really good. Yeah,
no, and I honestly, and I mean this with the kind of hand on heart, I honestly believe this is potentially one of his actual greatest roles. Mm-hmm. Because, he's done some voiceover in games. He's done, sorry, I'm just trying to, in my head, run through his... So Walking Dead, obviously.
Of course.
He was good in Walking Dead. I'm not saying he wasn't. Like, he was good.
I loved him in Walking Dead, absolutely, yeah.
And then Pacific, and then he was in Numbers, and but for me, there hasn't been one standout. For me, he's always been a kind of, I know who he is. Mm-hmm. Like, I've known it probably because of Walking Dead. And then, like, he shows up in kind of some of my usual kind of, like, nighttime watching, such as, like, I think he was in How I Met Your Mother and so forth.
Right. Okay.
For me, that is he's been that kind of actor who comes in and I know his face and I'm like, oh, okay, if he's in like House or something like that, you like, or a crime, if it was something like Castle, you'd know like, oh, you're the killer, you're a famous guy, you're going to end up being the killer. Like, you can always like, it's that kind of stuff. But for me, this just showed his breadth as an actor. Like, that one line you said there where he was talking about the daughter holding him up.
Mm-hmm.
That was like, I can honestly think that people who served in the military probably did full on cry during watching this scene.
Absolutely, and I did too, even though I've never served in the military. Yeah, definitely had to rewind that once or twice to see what was going on, since I couldn't see it the first time. Yeah, no, he's been in quite a few things this year, actually. A couple of quite big films. He was in The Wolf of Wall Street, I believe. Yeah, he was in The Wolf of Wall Street with Leonardo DiCaprio. He's been in quite a few films, but probably the big benefit of doing something like Netflix is you get the budget of a film and you also get 13 episodes to spread out your scenes. You know, myself and John talked about episode 3 having a real kind of stage play feeling to it, when it's just Daredevil and Punisher on the roof talking to each other, and kind of working out what they feel about each other, I suppose. And that, you know, a lot of the delivery from Jon Bernthal in that was fantastic. And again, no need to say it, but Charlie Cox was great in those scenes as well. But this monologue, as you say, with Jon Bernthal explaining, I suppose, feeling that that's it. And I do wonder, I do have that question, because we're 4 episodes in and I haven't seen any further. I do wonder, are we going to see Frank Castle back? I know promotional material has him and Elektra and Daredevil together. But is that just promotional material made for the series? Is this Frank Castle is now arrested and he's in prison? Now we're moving on to the next phase, which is Elektra. Or does he come back towards the end of the series to team up with them? I'll be interested to see that. I don't want him to be gone. I really do want to see the character back again, but he looks pretty broken up at the end of this episode.
I agree that's a query I have hanging very much over my head at the end of this episode. It's like, you're right, the promotional, this is something Netflix would do. Mm-hmm. It's like making you go, this is the main character, the main evil, the main baddie, and then go, nope, haha, it's not really.
I can think of at least, House of Cards is a great example where they did a lot of promotion for at least one character in season 2 who didn't make it very long in the series, was featured in almost all of their promotional material. So, that's definitely a Netflix thing to do.
Yeah. Again, around Daredevil, didn't they kind of, season 1 did have that 3-act structure? Mm-hmm. So kind of, and I see this potentially having the 3-act structure as well, where you have the first act Punisher, first 4 episodes. The next 4 will be very much Elektra focused, and then Marvel team ups at the end. Right. The last 4 kind of, and then the final 13th, kind of tying it all together. Right. I can see that happening. Mm-hmm. I think, no, I say I can see that happening. I think I more want that to happen. Like, it's kind of like, I want to see him again. I don't want his run to be finished. Mm-hmm.
Yep, no, I totally agree with you. Definitely really, really, really good character. It does seem very sealed off at the end of this episode. There is that moment when they're all kind of hanging out in the bar, and we're going to talk about that, I'm sure, later on in our points. But that moment when they're all hanging out in the bar, and that kind of, it goes into the end with Elektra. And that is, it really is closing off the first 4 episodes as being an arc of the Punisher and of Frank Castle. So hopefully we see him back, and now we know who he is. So looking forward to seeing it. He has been fantastic though.
Before we go on to our next point, because I do actually want to ask you about your next point. Mm-hmm. As the camera pans up to look at Daredevil standing on the arch, did you get a vibe of Dark Knight-y kind of Batman, kind of Chris Nolan / a lot of those Daredevil kind of, I think it would be kind of like Kevin Smith, when Kevin Smith was doing a few of the writing, where Daredevil's kind of like arched and kind of holding on to the cross. Yeah. For me, that was like, this would be your comic book cover.
Certainly.
This, in that one shot, I was like, oh yeah, I could see that so easily.
Certainly, yeah. There's definitely some great cues taken from comic book covers of the past, and Daredevil comic book covers in the past Definitely.
So, Derek, what would be your first point, since I stole probably your first point as well?
Well, that was a pretty big point of the episode. My first point is in relation to other actors that I've seen everywhere and love seeing in other shows. One of my favorite bit part actors, I suppose you'd call him, Tony Curran, playing Finn, the Irish guy, in this episode.
If you listeners didn't actually kind of gather from the grin that came through Derek's voice, Irish was in quotation marks.
There's nothing wrong with his accent. It's a very good accent. It's a Northern Irish accent.
It's one of the better Irish accents I've heard on TV. Absolutely. I'm going to say that.
Absolutely, he's believable as an Irishman. But yeah, he plays the new evil big bad for this episode, Finn. He's been seen before as Vincent van Gogh in Doctor Who. He's also been in three Marvel films in the past. He's been in Thor: The Dark World. He's been in X-Men First Class and in Blade 2. So, quite a big old range of Marvel movies. You'd definitely recognize him if you've seen him in something before. I loved this part. I loved Finn coming in. I loved his reaction with the other Irish. The fact that he effectively takes over an entire gang by killing their boss with an ice pick is phenomenal. What a great way to open up a character.
Completely agree. Aside from the accents, which I think it was just more the overarching Irish portrayal. It's one of the better. I will give you that. It's still better than Brad Pitt in Snatch.
Brad Pitt in Snatch is amazing.
It's still not it's amazing because it's just so weird. You're like, all right, it's a drunken Irish man, a drunken Irish traveller. If you want to go like a gypsy, yeah, okay, because they sound like everything else.
But Brad Pitt in Devil's Own is awful.
Okay, that one, yes, exactly. Actually, yeah. Listeners, please come back to us with feedback in terms of what are your top 5 worst Irish accents, because there's a lot of them, but we have to think about it.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely a Jared Butler in P.S. I Love You. There's a Sean Connery, which I can't remember the name of the film, but yeah, there's quite a few.
No, hold on. That was Sean Connery in using a Scottish accent, doing an Irish accent, which basically sounded like a Scottish accent.
Pretty much.
But listeners, come back to us with your feedback, because we can do that as feedback. We'll rank ours and you can rank yours and we'll put them all together.
Absolutely. But the brutality of Finn in this episode is really something that I thought was fantastic and really well portrayed by Tony Curran, really well cast in this role. I 100% believed he was going to torture Frank until his death and then torture Max, or as we've named him, his little dog. Totally believed he was going to go that dark. The fact that his son has been killed at the hand of Frank, and he still just wants the money that Frank stole. It's played so well, and it's totally believable. He is an evil crime boss, and really well played. So my point is really big props to Tony Curran. Hopefully we see you in other things soon, because you're not going to be back in Daredevil. Well, potentially. Maybe. You never say no in a comic book film, I suppose.
Well, the character he plays is in the comic books and is a disfigured character in the comic books, in that he's missing half his face.
Well, there you go.
So I very much see him coming back, kind of very heavy prosthetics, maybe half his face gone.
Uh-huh.
He's still alive, and he was sewn back together by the Irish mobs, and just kind of, he is now he's just crazy Finn kind of thing. But he is in the comic books with just half his face missing, so I'm like, oh, it makes sense.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one for you. But I agree, he was a fantastic character. You really did get that sense of the sense of psycho, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I said sense there a lot. In that you're right. We didn't know what he was going to do next. You didn't know. I did feel for Max, because I thought he was going to do it, and I was like, in my head while I was watching, it was like, the animal cruelty guys who look after films.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure they'll be outraged with PETA and all of it if the dog dies.
Certainly.
And I was like, I haven't heard anything, so I think we're okay. But I was like going, maybe no, maybe it just hasn't hit my radar. I was really afraid. I was like, God, this all ran through my head in the space of like 10 minutes. I was like, I completely agree with you. Fantastic portrayal. I'm hoping we see more of him in the comic book incarnation. So, because that would be brilliant. Just see him kind of do you remember Darkman with his face, the old comic book character?
Absolutely.
And he had his face wrapped in kind of bandages.
Liam Neeson. Yeah.
Yes. God, I forgot that actually.
Probably best.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah. It was one of our first comic book adaptation films. Come on. It's like Spawn. In 1996.
Yeah.
It's a terrible film, but you're like, it was good for what it was at the time. But no, sorry, back to my train of thought. In that I really would love to see him kind of come back in maybe one of the later episodes. Like, again, we'll talk maybe episode 9, 10. Right. He comes back as the next baddie. And now he's been like, I don't know. So, train of thought. Here we go. Go with me on this train. If the hand comes back, right? Mm-hmm. We know they're slightly magical.
Okay.
They save him and set him up as the next Kingpin. So they use magic to save him, but he's disfigured.
Okay.
And then he comes back as the big baddie, where Elektra and Punisher and Daredevil have to team up to go against him and the Hand.
Right.
And the Irish mob.
Interesting.
Oh, that would be cool. Come on, that would be, because you'd have ninjas and gangsters. Oh, ninjas, gangsters, and
Irish ninjas.
Irish ninjas. That would be amazing. Like, instead of nunchucks, they have bottles connected with string.
Stop the stereotypes, Chris. Stop the stereotypes. This is how it happens. So this is the reason why you're not allowed to watch episodes ahead, Chris. Because you're able to come up with these crazy, fantastical notions that could possibly be true.
I'd hope so. The one, basically, if that does, or any part of this happens, what I want to see is the scene where he comes out of the dark and he unwraps his face. Mm-hmm. And slowly you see the prosthetics of that kind of man who's lost half his face because of a shotgun to the face.
Right. Interesting.
That would be cool.
It would be fantastic. I thought you were going to say what I want is €5 if that happens. So I'm glad you didn't make it.
Actually, I do. Yeah, no. Nope, give
sorry.
me $10.
Sorry.
$10.
It's gone. On that note, Chris, do you want to give us your next point?
Yes, it's very much connected. It's connected to my first point and your point, the interrogation scene. Mm-hmm. This was one of the potentially, for me, one of the best scenes of the episode, but potentially one of the darkest sequences in the show's history. Or, I don't know, actually potentially one of Netflix's history.
Right.
I watch a lot of Netflix, and like this was gory.
I think it certainly was.
Like, I'm not squeamish. I've grown up on horror films. Mm-hmm. The Hammer House of Horror were my bedtime stories.
Right.
I loved them.
That's why you never sleep.
Yeah, it could be another reason. But the drill meeting his foot.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever did the special effects on this was amazing because it looked like his foot. I give you that. The camera pan and looked like his foot. I didn't see the cut. Mm-hmm. And the crimson, it was crimson blood, kind of. And then John, as Frank's guttural growl, as it came out, you could hear the drill go. I was like, oh, and you heard, they added the sounds that sounded, you could hear the bone and the flesh, first the flesh and the bone. That was just, it was heart-wrenching and shivering and everything in between. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a brutal scene. I think, I think stuff that happens in The Walking Dead probably gets as brutal as that. We haven't really seen something this brutal on Daredevil, I don't think. I think you're probably right. I do remember Marco Ramirez, one of the new showrunners, kind of saying that after the reaction to season 1, they realized they could push it further than they did in season 1. And things like the scene with Kingpin in season 1 where he slams the guy's head in the door. You don't actually see what happens to the guy. You just know it's happening. Which is fine. That, I think that's just as good a scene. You don't have to see all the violence as well. I'm certainly not saying that, but this scene particularly is very grimace inducing, I suppose. I know some people turned off season 1 because it was a bit too violent for them. I think this scene might make them turn off season 2 if they tried to give it another shot.
Oh God, yeah. And then the piece where Frank, he had the bandage. I thought he was taking out. So we have that scene just before. I thought he was taking out a bullet. He was shot or something, and I didn't quite catch it.
Right.
And then when in that interrogation scene where you see him digging within himself to pull out that razor blade that he had stashed there and cut the duct tape.
Yep.
Just grimace inducing. That is actually what we should call this. And I think you're right. With season 1, with someone trying to smash the head in the door, I don't think you could, as of right now, do the special effects and show it in such a way that would be fully believable. You know what I mean? It's probably believable, but we'd be so meh. But I think with the interrogation scene, it was so dirty, down and dirty, that it does make you go, oh. They could have done the cutaway, but I actually thank them. You could do it very over the top gore, you could do it under gore, but they did it just right. It's like Goldilocks and the interrogation scene.
It's like Goldilocks in the interrogation scene. Okay,
yeah,
interesting.
Just right.
Okay,
not too gory, not too light, just right.
Listeners, I needed that explained to me, definitely. No, I don't think any Jon Bernthals were harmed in the making of this episode, but they definitely, it definitely looked amazing and was very, very scary to watch, I must say. I wouldn't want to mess with Finn, and I certainly would have given up the money. A great moment really is when Frank gives up the location of the money, because he's gotten to him, but this is Frank's plan all along. As you say, where he pulls out the razor blade and escapes. This is his plan the whole time, was always to give up the location of the money to get Finn to go there, kill some of his guys, to have him distracted so that Frank can take him out. Fabulous scene, really, really good.
And correct me if I'm wrong, is this the most violent scene or death in MCU?
It's an interesting one. I think, obviously the death of Wesley in season 1 as well did have 2 bullets to the chest as well. I don't think we've seen a face blown off before, or anything of that style. I think we usually see, actually there is one in, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that happened a couple of weeks ago, which I won't spoil for anybody, but there is one in this season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where there is a bullet to the head as well, but, certainly not at this level where a bullet is basically shot into someone's face. That's certainly not something we've seen before in the Marvel TVU.
Yeah, they're definitely taking a step forward. And if you weren't rooting for the Punisher before this scene, because of his run-ins with Daredevil, you're going, he's an alright character. After this scene, and then the first scene, point 1 we described, you should be rooting for him by now. Yeah,
absolutely. No, I definitely love the character. I really do. Still want to see more of him. I'm still on Daredevil's side. I still don't believe in him murdering people all across the city. That's kind of one of my things. I'm not a vigilante. But I do love the character, definitely.
DD all the way. But, no, you're right. So, Derek, what is your next point?
My next point is the comparison of the 2 funerals that are happening in this episode. This episode is kind of all about death, really. There's a lot of death going on in here. But the opening scene is obviously the wake of some quite bad criminals. It's held by Brannigan, who's leading the wake, saying some kind of interesting blessing, I suppose, over everybody. He's saying, may your neighbors respect you, trouble neglect you, the angels protect you, and heaven accept you, to some criminals, to send them on their way to heaven, presumably, considering these guys are all Irish and all Catholic, and then they're sending them off with a drink. On the opposite side, then you have Grotto in a church with a priest, Father Lantam, who's not talking very positively about Grotto, who's saying he's a bad guy, despite the fact that he was in church every single week throwing money into the collection plates to buy his way into heaven. Yet that redemption will never come for him. This guy will never be redeemed because of the bad things that he did. I just love the contrast between those types of funerals. You've got one that's being held by people who aren't in any kind of religious profession, but claim themselves to be Catholics, and one that's held by a priest who's not giving any remorse for the fact that this guy died. It's in attendance by Matt and Curran and Foggy. And once again, Father Lantam is dispensing advice to them as opposed to dispensing any kind of, solace, I suppose, or any kind of normal platitudes that people expect a priest to give. He's saying, in each of us there's a world webbing out, touching others, some equal and some opposite. This is things he's saying to Matt. There's things he's saying about being Daredevil. Really nothing connected to the dead Grotto. In fact, he calls it out later on when Matt says, you'd usually expect a priest to call out to say something nice about someone that's deceased. And he goes, funerals aren't for the dead. They're for the living that are here. And I did say he goes to church every weekend. That's good, right? But yeah, I like the contrast between the two of them, and I love seeing Father Lantam back. It's great that they're able to drop these characters in from the previous season. No introduction at all to who he is, but we know from the previous season how connected himself and Matt are, and they're still playing that game of guess what I do at night for Matt, which I think is good fun. Neither of them want to actually say it, but both of them know that each other is fully clear on the defender of Hell's Kitchen being in the church.
I agree. For me, the first funeral, the Irish mob funeral, was what I expected from the show. Kind of very much kind of what you would expect from a mob funeral, aside from the ice pick to the eye.
Yeah.
The Father Lantham's funeral, that again was a fantastic scene. Cause you're right. You weren't expecting that as a funeral eulogy, or kind of or especially from a priest. And I think Father Lantam's character is so, well, aside from the night escapades bit, which we'll get to in a second,
okay,
his character is so non-priest-like, if you want to say like that. I don't know, from my own experiences with priests,
okay,
and the Catholic Church, I would never expect a priest to be that forthcoming, that direct, in a very roundabout way, but still giving very human advice, the character is fantastic. And this is going to show my ignorance now, or my just lack of sleep. Father Lantam is in Daredevil, but he's not as, in the Daredevil comic books, but he's not as central as the way they portrayed him in Netflix, am I right?
Yeah, I'd have to throw that one out to the listeners, to be honest. I have seen Father Lantam in a couple of comic books. There's certainly not, he's not the person that Daredevil turns to all the time. There are many characters over the years that Daredevil has had this kind of relationship with, I suppose. But yeah, no, Father Lantam does exist in the comic book universe, but this version of him, I think, is much more central in the show. But again, he's only in an episode here or there. He seems to make a huge impression when he is on screen, though.
Yes, and no, again, the actor is fantastic. I think they're kind of going for the Born Again arc.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're trying to kind of pull the Father Lantam from that.
Right.
As a kind of the father figure who took over when Matt's dad, etc. He was around the I was going to say monastery, but that's not right. The orphanage.
The orphanage. Yep.
Yeah, or the monastery orphanage, maybe. But I think, I don't know what it is about the character I like. I think it's probably more the wordplay the two of them do, as coming back to your last point, which was your nightly escapades.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I enjoy in that. Like, the two of them know, and they play this not cat and mouse, this kind of tango of words in that, oh, you know what I'm really saying, but we step over here and I'm going to say this, and then you're going to say this, and then rebuttal. And the part where Charlie Cox and Matt say, like, I feel guilty, and then he's like, what have you got to feel guilty about?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, yes.
If you're the person I think you are, which I love how Father Lantam puts it, if you're the person I think you are, you said you did everything you could do, so what's there to be guilty about? Yeah, I love it, but I also love that it's introed by Lantam looking at Matt and going, what is that you're looking for from me? It's a really exasperated kind of thing, you know. He's supposed to be a priest who's there to usually be an approachable person to talk to about your problems, but he's just looking at Matt going, stop dancing around it. Just tell me what it is that you want, because I'm not just going to stand here, you know. Really like that. Really like Father Lantam, I must admit. Chris, do you want to go on to your next point?
Okay, I'm going to talk about Kat or Maren. I'm not sure what do we want to call this? What's going to be the nickname for this couple instead of Karen and Matt?
Oh.
We can go for Kat. We can go for Maren.
Maren. I like Maren better.
Okay, let's go for Maren. Okay, we knew this was coming.
Uh-huh.
Oh, God. But they built it up fantastically. Yep. I will give them that. They gave us a whole season of will they, won't they, triangle. Did you feel bad for Foggy?
No. I kind of thought that Foggy was accepting what was going on. I think he realized, I know last season there was a big thing between himself and Karen, but I think he's realized that Karen's not for him.
Yeah, I don't think that was explained.
It wasn't.
Because I was like, oh, that's kind of just, we skip over that, and he suddenly becomes accepting. I was like, okay, well, what? Okay. Anyway.
He was also very, very drunk.
True.
Shots, Chris, shots.
Yeah. But okay, that scene where we see Foggy and Matt kind of enjoying their drinks and celebrating to capture Punisher.
Mm-hmm.
The shot where you see Foggy realize the connection between Matt and Curran. It's kind of just a hand. He sees it from distance. I was like, oh, that's because they didn't explain the piece where, like, okay, Foggy gets over and he accepts it and he understands that Maren is an item, is a thing. I was like, I thought he was going to get upset. That's where I thought this road was going.
Right.
I was like, oh, we're going to have a love triangle again, a bigger love triangle. And it's going to get all ugly, and it's going to end. Our avocados at law are going to get brown and horrible.
Trying to think what color the avocados are going to go there.
That's why I was going grey, no brown. Yeah, brown. Let's call it brown. But okay, anyway, they skipped it, and I thought it was brilliant.
It is a lovely moment, isn't it? It's the moment when you realise that Foggy is actually a true friend. He's going. He says to Matt outside, while they're waiting for Karen, he says to him, if you keep going this way, you actually might end off being happy. Which is a true friend kind of thing to say. I don't think there's any rivalry there between the two. Generally, he does say that Matt gets a lot more of the girls than he does. But in this case, he's kind of going, okay, well, I can see the two of you actually do have a connection. So I'm going to kind of step back, and hopefully the two of you are going to be happy together.
That was just fantastic. I did giggle at the rain. I thought we were going to get a Daredevil movie type style kind of shot of the world on fire in the rain.
I was so waiting for that to happen.
Yeah.
I was waiting for him to see a blue silhouette of Karen. Yeah.
Because the world's on fire for everything else, and she's blue as the love of his life. I know.
Like, is this Avatar? No.
Yeah. That was brilliant. That was okay. I think they did that on purpose.
Uh-huh.
I honestly did. And then instead we get that one raindrop slowly falling and using Matt's sense. Okay. I was so cynical. I was giggling. And then I went, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Ah.
Well, it was beautifully shot, see, I must say. And then obviously with Matt reaching out and touching her arm and rubbing the rainwater down her arm. It's a beautiful scene. And if she didn't kiss him at that point, I would have. It's so beautifully shot and such a great moment. Really, really enjoyed it.
For me, one of the best parts was the chemistry between Deborah Ann Woll and Charlie Cox.
Mm-hmm.
It was palpable. You could cut it with a knife in that split seconds before they kissed.
Yeah.
And then I was just, this is fantastic. I was like, I'm rooting for our Maren. Like, I'm going, yay, Team Maren.
God, you're such a shipper, Chris.
Yeah, I know. It's great. I'm the cheerleader in the background of Defenders TV podcast. Like, yay. But no, it was just, I think they did this well. They could have made, the directors and screenwriters could have made this very easily a pseudo notebook type moment where she runs through and he jumps into her herbs. That I'd pay to see. But no, she jumped into his arms and her legs are up and he's holding her. I was like,
They'd
in the rain. I know, but they could have gone that way.
They never would have gone that way. I'm guaranteeing you they never would have.
But okay, I want to see the outtakes because you know that probably they were messing in the rain, the two actors, and they did something like that.
Right, just watch Arrow because that's what they do on it.
Oh, hey, no Arrow bashing. Okay, so this is a point where I am a victim of my own knowledge.
Okay.
Because I know the history between Maren in the comic books.
I still wonder who Maren is every time you say it.
Yeah, I know. It's like, I'm going to have people going, like, Googling, who the hell is Maren on Daredevil? And slowly, that we should actually create an IMDb post and merge the two face swap the two faces and merge them together. Anyway, because I know the complications and the history from the comic books, I'm already dreading this story arc.
Okay.
like where this will go.
Have you not learned from season 1 where we thought that Karen was just going to be a drug addict from episode 1, and then at the end of the season she was skipping away all happy with herself?
Okay, hold on. You've heard her comments in this episode and in the previous episode. She's alluding more and more to a previous dark life.
Yes.
She is. And like, this is like,
and I'm hoping we're going to get to see it, definitely.
Yeah. If not this season, then it has to be season 3.
Right.
Has to be, because, and they haven't even confirmed season 3, which I was expecting around now, potentially in another month. Right. Sometime in the next month, we'll get a season 3 confirmation, I think. Mm-hmm. Because of how well I'm assuming this season has done in viewership, based on the number of media articles and the overall positive reviews I've heard from like kind of the IGNs, the Defenders TV podcasts, the big greats out there, you know, the big ones. So I think, as I said, I'm a victim of my own knowledge in that I'm like, I think I'm going to spend the rest of the series kind of going, what's she going to do wrong? Where's this going to go? I'm going to be nervous rather than, which I think a lot of viewers, which is the kind of the directors and writers are probably going for, is like, this is going to be the fantastic, happy part of Matt's life for a period of time.
Right.
Actually, based on this episode, it's for the space of like 5 seconds until he goes upstairs. We'll get to that point. It's going to be one of ours. But I think that, I don't know if I'm explaining myself very quickly, but I think
no. I totally get you, and it is one of the challenges as a podcast that covers the episodes as we do and don't watch ahead. I have heard many comments from a lot of viewers saying they're finding it difficult to separate their comic book knowledge from viewing it, but at least when you can watch the 13 episodes, you can kind of make a decision at the end of the series as to whether it cleaved very closely to a particular storyline or whether they're going to be taking stuff out of stuff for next season. But yeah, I'm going to put that one on hold, and we'll see how it pans out for Karen this season. Cause,
Team Maren.
Yes, sorry. We'll see how it pans out for Maren. I'm delighted that the two of them have such a wonderful scene and such a great kiss. We'll see if it plays out at all in the next episode, or whether the appearance of the other character may cause some problems for them. The one thing I will say at the end of that scene is I don't want to be that taxi driver. Karen
she's
is
soaking. Exactly. I thought that when I was, okay, great minds think alike.
Yeah.
Actually, that scene, that very last bit where you said we're feeling sorry for taxi driver, that was great because they kept him in focus at the same time as she was running back. Because usually you'd put one or the other out of focus. Yeah. But they kind of kept the two of them as much in focus as possible. And I thought they were going to do the Matt's defocuses as he looks like he's hearing her run off. Mm-hmm. And then I did think for a split second, it was like, she's going to get kidnapped by the Irish in the taxi, and then he's going to have to run after her and go, Curran, no!
No, they have a much better cliffhanger for us in here.
Exactly, yeah. So, Derek, what is your next point?
A big one. Melvin Potter is back with a brand new Daredevil suit. How cool is this?
Oh, I was so happy he was back.
Very cool, very cool. I know we had him in a previous episode, but in this episode, what we do get, which I thought was really cool, is that Melvin is now only making suits for Daredevil. Obviously, he's not making those old suits that he used to make, and for one other person, and that person is Melvin Potter. He shows off underneath the top he's wearing. He shows off that he's got his own body armor, and the body armor is colored in yellow and green, which are the Gladiator colors. So he is building up his Gladiator suit, which is awesome. Really cool.
It's the V as well and everything.
Yeah, and I did slightly confuse it with the Hydra colors. I was wondering whether Melvin Potter has got another career outside of his activities of building outfits. But no, did look it up, and it does look very close to his Gladiator outfit. So really cool that they're doing this nice, I suppose, alluding to his future as the Gladiator, and whether we will see Melvin Potter battle against Daredevil next season is going to be very interesting. We also see that he's still with Betsy and still looking to keep her safe as well. So it looks like Daredevil's relationship with Melvin Potter has worked out really well for them.
Oh yeah, no, and the circular blade he picks up every now and again. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, he's like, yeah, Gladiators come in.
It's very cool.
I wonder who his old contacts are.
Oh, well, I suppose they kind of mentioned it before. The old context would have been the other members of the criminal underworld that used to hold Betsy hostage effectively. So I suppose in last season it would have been basically everybody from Kingpin to Nobu. All of those people, and there are still a few of them still left in the city. So the old contacts they would have had, presumably people like the Irish coming to him and asking him for stuff that would stop a bullet. Those kind of people is the point, I think.
Yeah, no, I think, well, when he said the old contacts, my head went to any prominent bad guy from season 1.
Who might still be alive.
Yeah.
There's not that many of them, is there?
No, exactly. So I'm like,
so who's still left?
Because I don't think it would be new. I don't think they drop a line like that without having it mean something that when we watch future episodes, be like, oh, now I see what he means.
Interesting. I will be looking out for that one, definitely.
Yeah. And then you can totally spot Stiltman's armor and legs in the background of the workshop again.
Yep, I know. Very cool. Very cool. So, Chris, what did you think of the actual new costume, our brand new Daredevil costume?
I'm liking it. It is very much in that vein of the 90s Daredevil where he had the grey and red suit, the armored suit, the armored Daredevil suit.
Right.
I think in my kind of that style, he's becoming more armored. I don't think we're ever going to get the Ben Affleck style kind of red lycra or kind of
leather.
PVC leather, yeah. Which I don't know. I'd like to see, I would at one point like to see the all red.
Okay.
Because I think that'd be very cool. With a more kind of a fitted form face kind of mask. Which we slowly are getting a more devilly, because the eyes, I only noticed the eyes after he's done the sheen to the eyes that make it look cool.
Yes, very, very cool. Yeah, he's kind of incorporated in almost like Matt Murdoch's glasses. I don't know how he decided to do it, but it does look like he has Matt's glasses inside there, the red glasses or red tinted glasses. Very cool, very cool. Yeah, really like this outfit. Love that our first real scene with it is when Matt meets Mahoney after Punisher's attacked, and he's again sitting in a room bathed in red light. So while his costume isn't fully red, the first time we see the costume in full, it's bathed in red light again. So, really, really nice. Love the proper Daredevil horns this time. They're slightly sharper looking. Very cool. And I love the casual drop by Melvin Potter that, well, I think your headpiece or your mask is now indestructible. I don't think anything can penetrate that now. That's pretty darn cool. For a street level hero to have an impenetrable or unbreakable mask. That's pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, no, I thought this, although Daredevil does get beat up a hell of a lot, so I'm like going concussion damage maybe. It's a fantastic evolution. I'm wondering, will we see a third towards the end of the season? In that we had 2 different outfits in season 1, black and then the first outfit, and then this one we have the first outfit, and then now into the second. Will we potentially see, if we take the second, it's actually the first one and this one, because it's kind of a couple of episodes in. Will we see another iteration where someone bangs him up again badly? Because he says, I don't think anything will. Will someone come along with something that does and forces Potter to go back to the workshop?
Interesting. I definitely do want to see Melvin Potter again this season, so anything that brings him back on the screen is good for me. I am really hopeful for that, but I'm really, really excited about this suit. I think it's very cool. Chris, on that note, do you want to give us your final point?
I will. Boom! Elektra! Yay! She's right at the end. It was the perfect clincher, kind of the cliffhanger that we wanted. I will say this was slightly spoiled for me because of the trailer. Okay. Based on, I don't know why, but based on when we seen her in the trailer go, hello, Matt. The lighting when he comes upstairs and takes the drink and the beer, I was like, oh, that looks really familiar. Oh, here's where comes Elektra. And I was like, boom.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
It just kind of signaled the traffic lighted it for me.
Right.
It was just, no, but anyway, forget that. Elektra Natros is here.
Yes, she is.
And in all her glory.
Yes, I definitely wanted to watch the next episode after the end of this one, even though this episode tore through me and made me an emotional wreck the minute I saw Elektra and going, hello, Matthew, I just wanted to see why she's there. I wanted to see everything about her. I want to see what their connection is. I want to know much more about this character, and we're going to get it. I can't wait to see it.
Well, we the only thing we know so far, correct me if I'm wrong, is that they dated in college.
And that was a dropped line in season 1.
Yeah.
Apparently it wasn't even supposed to be Elektra. Everybody just assumed it was Elektra. It was a dropped line about it was a Greek girl that he dated in one of his classes, and everybody just went, oh, well, it's Elektra, obviously.
Yeah.
So whether it will connect, which everything's connected in the Marvel Universe, so whether it will connect to that particular comment and that she knows Foggy and she did go to college with Matt, we don't know yet. So we'll be finding that out coming up pretty soon, I'd say.
Oh, yeah, no, I think this is going to be each of ours biggest point on episode 5. I just want to know. That's my thing. Also, I know we've seen her through press materials in her Elektra outfit. Mm-hmm. I really just want to see it though, because a lot of it's been rendered or pre-staged. I want to see it in action. Absolutely.
Oh no, I'm really looking forward to seeing Elektra. She's one of my favorite characters. I read Elektra Assassin when I was a kid. Really, really enjoyed that book. A really weird, interesting style for Marvel Comics at the time. A very violent book, and really enjoy the character, and really looking forward to seeing how they treat her on the TV show. Definitely.
Let's hope 10 times better than the movie. I'm not saying that the movie was terrible, but I'm saying if it was on Rotten Tomatoes, I would throw Rotten Tomatoes at it.
The Elektra movie is shockingly bad. Shockingly bad. Whatever you think about after you watch the Ben Affleck, Jennifer Garner film, whatever you think about that Elektra character, if you think you can survive Elektra and watch it the whole way through, good luck to you.
Yeah. Do you remember the wolf ghost?
I don't even want to reminisce on that one.
Here's to a new Elektra. Woo!
Absolutely. Welcome, Elodie Young, to the world of Daredevil. Looking forward to seeing what you have for us.
Derek, do you have a last point?
I do have a last point. And it's the one bit that we didn't talk about. 2 of the Hell's Kitchen heroes, or vigilante heroes, team up in this episode. So we've talked about Frank breaking out from the interrogation, but Daredevil comes to save him, and they do a team up. It's an interesting one.
Yeah, okay.
I do love the scene because Daredevil is fully powered now. He's got his brand new suit. He's able to take a bit more punches. He's able to use the darkness a bit more, and he's able to use his billy clubs to take out a lot of the people that are around him. Very cool fight sequences that are in there. But what I love is, while doing that, he does use Frank to block and take out some of the other guys. And then you see Frank doing things like picking up a hammer to crack over one of the guys' heads, and Daredevil has to stop him. He takes out a gun to try and shoot somebody while in the fight sequence, and Daredevil has to stop him as well. I love this sequence. This is exactly what I wanted to see from these two fighting side by side. I wanted to see what Daredevil would do and how he would work with a character, or a person like Frank Castle, who he doesn't believe in his methods, kind of understands him, but yet doesn't agree with the kind of things that Frank, or the lengths that Frank will go to. It's quite interesting just how it plays out in a pretty silent scene. He's basically going, nope, don't do that. Nope, stop there. You can't hit someone in the head with a hammer. No, you can't shoot that guy. Calm down. All you want to do is knock them out and leave them the way I'm leaving them. Deadly. Really, really cool scene. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I know, and I think you're actually something we didn't mention, the billy clubs.
Mm-hmm.
Now they've really incorporated that into Daredevil's fighting style.
Yes,
so they're brilliant, where they're knocking off walls, bouncing off something else, bouncing off his head, and coming back to Matt's kind of hand. I was like, oh.
So good. So good. This guy must be amazing at pool.
Yes, so much. Well, we saw that.
Yes, we did.
There you go.
Very true. Very true. That's all of my points for this episode. Chris, do you have any notes about this episode?
I do have some notes. Because I haven't been here so far, I just wanted to kind of pull together some quick tidbits on some Easter eggs, maybe, from the episodes 1 to 4. We've discussed a lot of them actually already, which is great, and you guys discussed some of them previously. The first one, Claire Temple.
Yes, she was awesome.
Yeah, I was so happy she's back. But the piss someone off in her current job line.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, ooh, is she going to get fired from Metro General and just going to facilitate her move to Hell's Kitchen in Harlem? And then we obviously see her, and she's prominent in Luke Cage. I hope we see more of her in this. I'm wondering, is that the line they're going to use? And that the more and more she gets involved with these vigilantes, that she pisses off her bosses, takes time off.
Well, what I did like about it was the fact that she mentioned by taking that day off to take care of Luke Cage that she'd been given the unending night shift. Effectively, she'd been working for an entire month. What I mentioned about it is that now that is the origin story of the night nurse. Effectively, she is getting endless night shift because of trying to help out the superheroes.
On a side note, how completely wonderful is Elden Henson as Foggy in the hospital scene?
So good last week. Yeah,
that was just brilliant. Point number 2: Karen is really, really alluding. I discussed this in this episode to her mysterious past again.
Yes.
With like what I deserve it and drawing in my own stuff. I'm not going to go too spoilery about the future, and we hinted at it. If you have not read the a Daredevil comic book, or you want to read more, if you've watched the whole season, please go read Daredevil Born Again.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm pretty 100% it's going to be a future season, so you may be spoiling that if you don't want to stay away. Never read Born Again, but that's where I think so.
Oh no, definitely read Born Again. It's always better to read the book before you see the show. The show is so well done and so different as well, so I highly recommend Born Again anyway.
So Derek, now to round up the episode, have you got a couple of notes?
I certainly do. There's some really interesting stuff going on in this episode. Just some fun little things that I caught. Did you notice in Frank's house when Karen is walking into the house, there's some drawings that the kids did on the wall. One of the drawings is of Luke Skywalker fighting Darth Vader, which I thought was pretty cool. A nice little Star Wars tribute in the year of Star Wars as it was when this was filmed. Thought that was quite cool.
No, it did definitely very cool.
Also, we have a potential new big bad for the season, and I'm really interested to see who these guys are. The men and women in black suits who arrive at the house for Karen. The description given to her is that these are the people that were monitoring Frank when he was in the hospital after taking that gunshot wound. Before we ever meet him, effectively just after the death of his family, there were a group of men and women all dressed the same, all dressed in black suits, who controlled everything in the hospital, controlled everything about him, and also said to the orderly to do a do not resuscitate on Frank and allow him to die. Really interesting, because I'm wondering if this is yet again a connection to Jessica Jones. Is this a connection to what we spoke about all the way through that series with the character of Will Simpson, who was a former Marine, brought into a program, given drugs to enhance his abilities? It made me wonder if these guys in black suits, guys and girls in black suits as described, it made me wonder if they're connected in some way to that program, considering they're still monitoring Frank's house and are there very quickly once after Karen arrives. It just got me wondering whether there's some connection in there, or are they S.H.I.E.L.D.? They could be S.H.I.E.L.D. You never know.
I'm going Hand, or I'm going the Jessica Jones. I'm leaning more towards Jessica Jones.
Right.
But again, the Hand in day-to-day clothes, when they're not wearing ninja garb, potentially. I'm pretty much with you on the Jessica Jones front on that one.
So you think if they rip off their suits, there's going to be some ninja outfits underneath?
Potentially, but I think more likely. You're right. I want to see it being the Hand, but it probably won't. So it's probably more a way to tie Jessica Jones being the shady government agency. They wanted Frank Castle to be the Will Simpson, or a part of Will Simpson's group.
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping there's some kind of connection that we'll see in here between Will Simpson and Castle. We talked about it enough during our Jessica Jones podcast. I just hope it comes through. I hope we see Will Simpson back and maybe working alongside or sent after Frank Castle. It'd be quite cool.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
And one final note, another Jessica Jones connection, but a little one. Did you notice that Frank got a syringe in the neck? Do you think that's was filled with the same type of stuff that was used on Kilgrave?
I hope not.
He seemed to be knocked out pretty quickly.
Okay, yeah, I can see where you're going with that.
So I was looking at it going, I wonder if that's the same stuff that was used on Kilgrave. Nice little Jessica Jones connection once again. With that, I think we can hand it over to our virtual co-host for his top 5 points. We'll be back directly afterwards.
So I hope that the lads have been treating you to a right royal discussion about this episode, and obviously all my points link smoothly into theirs, and we all agree enormously well. My first point is picks, drills, and gunshot thrills. The gunshot to the face, wow. This is one of the rawest, most visceral episodes of Daredevil so far. The camera really does not shy away from the gunshot to the face of the Irish mob leader Finn. It's really, really violent. And not only do we have that, but we had the ice pick right at the start by Finn into, I presume that's Brannigan. I can't quite remember, and I can't quite recall whether they actually mentioned who that was, but, the ice pick to the face. I mean, I really gotta say, would you not just do cube trays? This idea of a big block of ice and an ice pick, probably not the best thing to do. And then you have Finn torturing the Punisher with the drill. So yeah, I mean, currently doing quite a lot of DIY, not going to in any way, shape or form be able to look at the drills again at all. I mean, this really reminded me, this episode of Daredevil, of In the Blood, episode 4 of season 1, where we have Wilson Fisk really show the Russians exactly what he's about as he slams his head in the door. And of course, it all just brought me back to Wesley, James Wesley, played by Toby Leonard Moore, one of my absolute favourite characters of season 1. This was the most explicit aspect of this season of Daredevil so far. I mean, it really, really was. It was kind of like, ooh, you really did want to shy away. Absolutely. So that was really good. I loved, the Punisher, the fact that in this episode, he has the razor blade in the arm. I'm like going, oh my god, you psycho. I mean, absolute nut job. Oh my goodness, he is getting the drill in the foot, and this is all part of his plan. And I absolutely loved that he had really set about, pulling and drawing out the Irish mob and really trying to get to the head of that mob, Finn, and really, cut the head off the snake. Whether he's cut the head off the bigger snake, I don't know, because it seemed to me that Finn, really, really was maybe reporting to others as well. I mean, he was a despicable character. I'm glad he got his comeuppance ultimately, but I really like the fact that the Punisher planned all of this in a way that, he seemed to enjoy it almost, because he knew he was going to get retribution. And I love the contrast then of the fact that the Punisher becomes incarcerated at the end of this episode by Officer Mahoney. And I like the whole speech that Murdoch says to him. I think we've seen that Officer Mahoney earlier in the episode is maybe one of those guys who's against the Daredevil. He's against Punisher. He's making the law irrelevant for them. He says he goes around chasing after the mess that these guys leave behind. They're no longer making the law, enforcing the law, but just simply following these guys around, dealing with their mess. So I like the speech that Matt Murdoch does with him. He basically says, it's important for you to arrest him and get the credit, because then it's not my way and it's not the Punisher's way that is getting the credit, it's the law's way. Really like that. That's kind of my second point. Who are the suits is my third point. We hear in this backstory, and it's a bit of backstory intrigue really, from the nurse who's been fired from Metro General. We hear about these suits who are trying to do not resuscitate the Frank Castle, put those DNRs onto Frank Castle. We then see Curran at Punisher's home, which of course looks hugely suspicious. The fact that it's been left in pitch perfect condition. You have these sensors around, which are looking and recording, whether anyone's broken in. I was thinking, well, is this just Frank Castle's? But then we get the mystery van turning up, and this whole, intrigue is really exciting for me. Who is it? Is it these other people that seem to be sort of mentioned by Finn, the Irish mobster? Are they other people involved with the Punisher's backstory. That's something I really can't wait to find out, especially because it also maybe ties back to the DA's office. So we really have a dodgy DA here in Samantha Reyes. That's kind of one of my theories I think I'm going to pull out of this, is that she is rotten to the core, and she's going to get found out maybe in this episode. So, and this will then spark a race for a new district attorney, which maybe links in with Blake, her current assistant DA, and maybe Foggy, so it'll link into the comics that way. My fourth point then is Elektra Natros turns up. The old flame arrives in Matt's apartment just as his brush with a new flame with Curran has taken place in the rain. And so this is just making it really, really complicated. In Agent Carter, we have a bit of a love triangle going on between Agent Carter, Dr. Wilkes, and Chief Sousa. And I think now here we're going to have two women, Elektra Natros and Curran, with Matt Murdoch in between. I love the fact that she's turned up in the apartment. I can't wait to see if she is just going to be there for his physicality. She needs him to do a mission, or whether there's an old flame sort of relationship there going on. They certainly do in the comics have a connection. So this would be a nice little battle royale, I think, between the two ladies here. The new flame spurned as Elektra Natros, someone from Matt's history and past, comes to town. So I'm really looking forward to that. My fifth and final point is really Finn. I mean, I was just there going, we're nice people. I mean, okay, I'm not technically Irish, but I've lived in Ireland since 2002. I'm like going, please don't judge the Irish by the Irish mob in New York. I mean, these people are asses. And I mean, he plays him really, really well. I mean, when he gets his face blown off, you are kind of going, okay, that was intense. Wow. No one deserves that. And then you're kind of thinking, well, maybe he did ultimately. He was not a nice guy at all. I mean, you have him going around town threatening people to expose and try and track down the Punisher. You have him threatening Max, the dog, in front of the Punisher. And I love that you see the Punisher's soft, gooey side for animals really come out here. Even though he's only just taken custody of that dog, rescued the dog, he's part of his household now. He's lost his wife and kids, and he's now got a new household with Max the dog, so don't threaten Max the dog ever. I really, really thought that was a big mistake by Finn. But I loved the portrayal of Finn here, really good. But don't judge a book by its cover, Don't judge the Irish by Finn. He's a violent idiot. And yes, we just came off a bad St. Patrick's Day with regards to the massacre of Brannigan and Nesbitt, and now we have this. But I'm loving seeing the Irish gangs here. They really add a connection to the history of New York with that whole Irish American story. So really, really good to see.
So those are John's top 5 points. Seems to have enjoyed the episode quite a lot, even though unfortunately we can't actually hear them as we record. Thanks very much for recording those, John. Chris, that only leaves one thing left to do. Do you defend this episode of Daredevil?
Oh, I so do. Oh my God, I so defend this episode. And because John is not here and he's giving us his John-esque rating, I'm going to fill in just while two of us are here. This is 5 out of 5 drills to the foot.
Wow. A 5 out of 5 from Chris. That's phenomenal.
No, it had to be. From the fight scene to the interrogation scene, the appearance of Elektra, we could go on. Mm-hmm. But none of it outshines the monologue, soliloquy, whatever we want to call it, from Jon Bernthal. For me, that is Emmy award-winning, edge of the seat viewing, and I would love to take just that piece and you could show that to someone and go, what does this make you feel? And if people say nothing, I'm like, you're dead inside. Like, my God, man, come on, get it together. It turned me come on, I'm being honest. It turned me into a blubbering mess. I'm not going to leave you out there, Derek. I'm sorry. I was a blubbering mess as well.
Yep.
And I rooted for Punisher. They flesh out a character who, before, as I said, I had no real affinity, empathy, connection with. I now, from one episode, I now have a huge affinity, connection, empathy, yearning to see more of. Yeah, that's what it was. 5 out of 5. I can't say any more about it. We've talked too much, but I can't say any more. I love this. So, Derek, do you defend this episode of Daredevil?
This episode was fantastic. It had so much of what I was looking forward to in seeing with Frank Castle. So much in there. Loved having the Irish gang back again. We haven't seen them since the attack by Frank in episode 1. Really, really loved what they did here. There was so much brutality going on. Really, really violent, but only violent because of the involvement of Frank Castle. It needed to be this level of violence. It needed to be this level of Max Marvel, to justify the inclusion of Punisher, in this TV show and not having hard done by. I'm really hopeful that we're going to see more of Jon Bernthal in this show. He is fantastic. As Chris said, I was also a blubbering mess watching these scenes, listening to his description of what happened to him when he returned from war, and also the toll that it's taken, losing all of his family. Really, really tough scenes to watch, but that's exactly what I want from any TV show. I want to feel something, and this certainly made me feel something. I'm intrigued because it's not giving the full story. We still don't know who killed his family, who was responsible for it, and that makes me intrigued for a possible future Punisher series, or possibly just the future episodes in this season of Daredevil. But there was also so much other wonderful stuff in here. Having Maren created in front of our eyes was fantastic. Obviously, the allusion to Elodie Young's Elektra for next week. Really excited to see that. And also just having Matt, Curran and Foggy sitting in Josie's bar, having a toast over a well-won victory is something that was probably needed to happen. We haven't seen much of that since the first season, so we probably needed them together as one unit before whatever's coming comes. Really excited to see more of it. And finally, Virtual John, do you defend this episode of Daredevil?
Yes, I absolutely defend this episode of Daredevil, Season 2, Episode 4, Penny and Dime. I don't think it's going to be to everyone's taste. I mean, it is one of the most violent episodes. It harks back to In the Blood, Episode 4 of Season 1 of Daredevil, and in that sense, I think it's absolutely important that you have this raw, visceral aspect to this show. The gunshot to the face, the interrogation of the Punisher, the saving of the Punisher by Daredevil, that connection being made so that moving forward in this season, you know, they maybe can possibly work as a team. I love to see how the Punisher's incarceration goes. I love that theme and narrative about, you know, which side of the law are you on? And in the end, you're actually saying, I'm actually on the side of the law, not the Punisher's law, not Matt Murdoch's or Daredevil's law, but the actual police. You know, not everyone in the police is corrupt. And that was really good as well. We have Elektra Natros turning up, and you know, we have a really bit of intrigue coming, I think, to the DA's office here with those suits and Frank Castle and the Punisher and what happens there. So I really can't wait for that, and that is why I ultimately give this 4.5 drill points out of 5. This was really good. I can't wait to see the next episode. It's one of those things where I hope it doesn't kind of fall back. This has promised so much that I just can't wait to see the next episode.
Very interesting. That's obviously huge defending from all three of us. Really enjoyable episode overall.
I'm wondering if it will be one of our best rated. Is this potentially our best rating that we've ever given an episode of the MCU?
Very possibly. It is certainly the best rating that you've given to anything we've covered so far. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's true. I am a tough nut to crack, but my God, did Frank Castle do it.
Excellent. On that note, I think it's time to get over to our feedback. John has graciously recorded the feedback for us from both Jim Carrey and from David Wang for this week. So I'll pass it over to him.
Yeah, in the feedback, there's 2 bits of feedback that I really want to put out there. The first is actually this whole point that, you know, some of this violence is getting quite meaty, but also, the depiction of that violence, maybe not to everyone's taste. Jim Carrey on Defenders TV podcast says, is it just me or did Daredevil adopt a season 2 habit of groaning, grunting, growling with physical effort? I think it's slightly absurd and ridiculous, partly because it broadcasts at his level of effort, letting the opponent know he's expending energy with each lunge, leap, dodge, or whatever. As for me, the viewer, it just over macho drama like you hear in a bad workout club. Certainly at the end of episode 3 there, after that amazing corridor and stairwell fight, he is breathing very deeply, is Matt Murdoch, dressed in his outfit. And so I see what you're saying, absolutely. I definitely think that the fight sequences are much more frequent in this season so far, and I think they've definitely been ramped up. And I think partly this is to do with the fact that Daredevil is facing the Punisher, and the Punisher is really fully formed. It's not like it's a backstory or anything like that. So he's such a physical presence. He's such a threat and an uncompromising type of character, that there is this need to be hugely physical and uncompromising back. I think, as I said in a response to Jim on our Facebook page, it's, fight fire with fire. But, thanks so much, Jim, for those thoughts. It's really, really good for all the feedback. In fact, on that point as well, Ronaldo also says he thinks it defines Daredevil and sets him apart from other physically enhanced heroes like Captain America, in the Marvel Universe, because Matt physically is still only human, and the stuff he does tires out the fittest of blokes. So it's the effort required. And that's why there's such this emphasis placed on the physicality, but also the consequences of that, whether it be the blood, whether it be the panting and the recovery of these fights. Really interesting. One of the other bits of feedback comes from David Wang. He goes, he loves how the main theme flared up when Frank was carted away by Officer Mahoney. And absolutely, I think this is really, really good. I love the fact that that theme tune from the opening credits of Daredevil is now being incorporated much more into the actual episodes, with slightly different flourishes, and just, as he said, flaring up at real important, iconic moments, and that, the Punisher getting incarcerated, fantastic. Thank you, David, as well, for all that feedback. He also does go on to say, I really think Marvel Netflix should stop releasing trailers altogether. It would have been nice if I never knew the scenes that led up to Elektra sitting in Matt's sofa. Absolutely, I can always kind of agree with that. I'm a bit of a Christopher Nolan type when it comes to trailers. Even J.J. Abrams, the less the better. I mean, to think of the fact that she was sitting there after the episode that we had and after what just happened with Curran, not knowing that she was going to actually be there, or that scene was going to happen from the trailer, or in fact even that we didn't know if she was even going to be in the show. That would have been really cool. So there is a kind of a one of those balances that has to be made about how much do you show in the trailers, how much do you give away, and how much do you hold back so that it becomes really shocking, surprising, just revelatory in the episode. So yeah, absolutely, David. Thank you so much for all that feedback.
We also got another bit of feedback on Twitter from Linda W., who says, just found your Daredevil podcast. What a great recap and discussion. I caved and binged, but I'm so looking forward to your thoughts. Now I just need to tackle the Agent Carter episode stacked up on my DVR.
Thank you very much, man. I'm sorry to hear you caved, but as long as you listen along with us, I would love to know. You probably know now, based on 4 episodes of Theory, how much is correct and how much is wrong. On a gauge of oh my god, these guys are prophets, to my god, these guys need to be put on a loony bin. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if we're somewhere in between. I
think we're aiming towards loony bin so far. The first 3 episodes, we've made some serious predictions. Since you weren't on the first couple of episodes, just to let you in, one of our big predictions was that Grotto would actually team up with Turk Barrett, as they are friends in the comic books. That's not going to happen. So our predictions are not going so well right now, Chris.
Okay, well, hopefully some of my crazier predictions might bring us back in line.
You never know.
I doubt it, though.
Anyway, thank you very much for that, Linda. Very good of you to get in contact. Finally, we also got a review over on iTunes, and all I can say is thank you so much. 5-star reviews over on iTunes hugely help us and hugely help other people to find our podcast. Really, really good of you to leave the review. So I just want to say thanks so much to HZBXBNX for your review over on iTunes. Thank you so much. And if anybody else wants to leave a review on iTunes, just pop over to defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes.
Yeah, I have to mirror Derek in this. No one has touched me since Frank Castle touched my soul. So HZBMX, thank you. Thank you so much. You are my new Frank Castle.
Excellent. On that note, I think it's time to close out the episode. What do you think, Chris?
I think we're going to have to. Yep. Otherwise, we're going to have to bring Jon back from Siberia at some point. So I think we can only leave him in the freezing cold for another, what do you think, 24 hours?
I think that's about it. And we've gotten you out of the chains from the roof as well, Chris, which is awesome. Hopefully you'll be able to be back with us for the next episode of Defenders TV Podcast.
Oh, I will. And I think more importantly, the fact that Jon's in the freezing cold, can we call him Captain America now?
He won't have aged a day since,
Yes.
so he went away. Thank you very much for listening. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye.
With that, I'm going to eat a ton of cheesy Doritos, or should I say nachos, and dip them lovingly into a pile of hot, spicy salsa. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
This has been a Flickering Myth Podcast Network production. For more information, head over to flickeringmyth.com for more shows like it. Find this show in iTunes by searching for the podcast name, and head over to youtube.com/Flickering Myth to subscribe to the Flickering Myth movie show. We'll see you on the next podcast. Take care. Bye bye.